Hey everyone, it's Warriors NRL Fanatics. Welcome back to the YouTube channel. And tonight I've got two very special guests joining me. I've got Ash there from Wise Up TV, and we've got Anton Posa, who's a big, massive Warriors fan. Everyone knows Anton on the socials. He's all over the place at the moment with his you know views and opinions, and he's a big Warriors fan, of course. And yeah, it's good to have you two back on the channel again tonight. And yeah, we're gonna discuss all things Warriors. Like I say, you never get too much Warriors content out there at the moment. You never do. So and the bye, we had a bit of a bye last week, so bit of a rest, refresh for the back end of the season. So we're all excited about the back end of the season as well. So yeah, Ash, good to see you on. How you doing, bro?
Yeah, all good, bro. Over here in Brisbane, Australia. Everything's a little bit nippy over here, but I always feel bad coming onto Warriors channels and talking about it. It's a little bit cold over in Australia when, obviously in New Zealand, obviously feeling it. Hey, Anton over there, right?
Oh, I'm in Sydney, bro. I don't know what
you're in Sydney?
About. Yeah,
oh, what? Sydney. I thought you're from New Zealand.
I am from New Zealand. No, I moved back to Sydney last year, but it's bloody freezing here too. It's just not raining. That's the difference, I think. New Zealand, you get a lot more rain, but it's bloody cold here. It was like 6 degrees on the old e-bike this morning. Knuckles were old white knuckles for sure. Yeah,
bro.
No, we're good. It was a good little rest over the bye week, and it's a good chance to sort of take stock of where we're at, watch other teams' players get injured, that type of thing. Stress free.
Yeah, definitely is. But it's great to have you guys back on. It's always good to hear your thoughts on all things Warriors, and like I say, we had a chat about how the season's gone. We're in the back end of the season now, and maybe just a little refresh and talk about some of the players that really stood out, and all the things that have been going on at the club, throughout the season so far. And yeah, we're coming to that midpoint of the season now. We're getting into the back end of the year, and this is where it gets really exciting, because we get to see who the real contenders are in the NRL Premiership race as well. So we'll talk about that as well. But everyone, don't forget to like the live stream if you haven't done so already. Make sure please hit that thumbs up button, share the stream, subscribe to the channel. Go and subscribe to Ash as well, Ash Thomas, and the boys that Wise Up, doing a great job. You and Levon. Big shout out to you boys. Man, I've really been enjoying your content. And yeah, you guys are just doing a brilliant job. I'm massive fans of what you guys do.
I appreciate it, bro.
So yeah, big shout out to you guys. And yeah, Ash, you can check Ash Thomas out on YouTube as well. He's got his own personal YouTube channel. He does his own content as well on a weekly basis as well. So go and check out his stuff as well there on his channel. And yeah, let's get into it, boys. Let's get into it. The Warriors 2025 season has been a bit of a surprise, hasn't it? We didn't expect this sort of form going to the back end of the year. We're sitting in third spot at the moment on the ladder. We've had 2 byes. We've had 10 wins, I believe, and 3 losses, and our only 3 losses were to the Raiders in Vegas, of course, and the Raiders at home, and then the Storm in Melbourne. So, based on the games so far this season, Ash, what are your thoughts on how the boys are tracking? How do you reckon we're tracking at the moment? What are your takes on this season so far?
Yeah, unbelievable, bro. Especially, when you first run into the season, I think I was one of maybe, a few people kind of thinking that we could be a top 8 side, still. I thought that we could probably stay at the fringe of the 8, fight for the fringe of the 8 at the start of the season, but also kind of, taking it in it is a transitional year from our experienced pieces that we did lose. Webby trying to obviously instill more of the system over time, right? Our junior bases are still, growing over time as well, and bringing over Fisher Harris and that to kind of reinforce a lot of Webby's stuff that he's learned from, other clubs and that, and really push that home with the boys and a new group. And I feel like we've kind of seen that as the boys, they started off with a baseline. Obviously the Vegas game wasn't what we all expected, especially coming off the trials. I think a lot of Warriors fans were hoping and praying that, we'll just hit the ground running from game 1, where people, that were thinking the Warriors were a wooden spoon team or whatever to start the year, that all Warriors fans could laugh at them straight away. Didn't end up that way, but it did after that game. We started grow bit by bit. And what I love the most about this Warriors team at the moment is we just seem to hold it to the contest. We love the grind. We do all the big major things that win football games over time. We've built it as it's hard. We're very connected this year. And when you look at the rest of the competition, you know, the three top teams in the competition right now are all the most connected sides and all the sides that are willing to get into the battle with every sort of side and bring it out at the end. And I think we do that better than most. It reminds me a little bit of the 2023 season, as in the fact of Webby's just slowly, bit by bit, tweaking things. And, you know, we're seeing the potential starting to grow over the season goes on. I like to call them chapters. Like the start of the season, we're kind of trying to really hone in on our defense and, you know, be that real tough side. A lot of people were worried about, you know, our defense and that. And we started to really reinforce that. And then we started to add our attacking pieces. You know, Metcalf started to step up and that. So been very, very happy to see how the side has grown, especially in a transitional year, and has the potential to continue to do more so over time. But you'd probably agree with that. Anton, what was your thoughts to start the season and where we are now?
Yeah, man. I think what you said is pretty spot on. You know, I'd like to see myself as a pretty optimistic Warriors fan at the best of times. I think Warriors fans are generally err on the side of hopeful every season. Yeah. No matter how bad last season was, we kind of go, well, I mean, the whole "this is our year" thing is kind of a joke, but we do say it because, like, we love to believe that our fortunes can change. But I think even the most hardcore fan at the start of the season had to kind of look at the squad. Has it gotten better? Has it got worse? And we lost Sean, who was, let's face it, he was the point of the spear on attack for like the last couple of seasons. We lost Fanua Blake, who's probably like in the top three, you know, props easily of the competition. So there's just a lot of stuff you're losing there. And then right when we thought we couldn't have another kick in the nuts, Harris retires just before the start of the season. And we were like, okay, now we're kind of in trouble. We signed Aaron Clark, which we all know is a good footy player. He hadn't been playing 13 enough for the Titans, but we've seen him play for the Kiwis. We know he's defensively strong and all that sort of stuff, but you go, how's it all going to work? There's just too many question marks. We didn't know whether who the halves were even going to be, who Webby was going to pick. When we knew it was Metcalf at 7. How would he go at 7? We haven't seen it before. A lot of people said no, he's a 6 because that's where they've seen him. And because he's quick, people go, he should be 6 because he can run fast, which is pretty sort of basic way to look at things. But I was kind of, the way I look at Metcalf, I was kind of like, well, yeah, he's quick. But I remember watching a power game at Magic Round like about 4 or 5 years ago and watching the way Mitch Moses would move laterally across the field, swinging from both sides of the ruck. That dude's fast, man. He's really quick. And on the ball, he's just such a threat. And I just thought, like, he switched from fullback to 5'8" and then landed at halfback and started controlling side. So I thought, if Luke has got that, he's got that history behind him and he does know how to do it. He just hasn't had a chance. Let's give the guy a crack. He's got the biggest ceiling out of everybody, and Webby's done that. So and it's paid off, which is great. And he stayed fit, which is the main thing. The other thing is, we didn't know what was going to happen when the young forwards were called on to step up, because those guys didn't get many minutes last year. They came off the bench for 10 minutes here, 20 minutes there. There's promise for sure, but like there was going to be a point in the season where we were going to lose a key player in that pack, and we didn't know whether these young guys were going to come in and be over exuberant, make errors, or whether they would still, you know, have that muscle memory around our systems to work. And what's really pleasing is that while on paper, we may not have one of the top sides in the comp. We play so well as a unit, and we see it how we defend, but also in how we attack as well. And it's kind of like looking at the game as a whole game and trying to fatigue sides, as opposed to looking to score on every play, which I think we've been guilty of in the past. So I mean, look, long answer, but overall, we have to be thrilled, right? We've got to be happy with this.
Agreed.
Yeah, and just pop into the chat here. Got Will. Hello to Will. Salute the main four this year are the Dogs, Wars, Raiders, and Storm. Panthers seem like they're in an ambush mode. Don't count them out. They look like they're coming. Yeah, we're speaking of the Panthers. We do take on them this week at home. But yeah, I do feel like, you know, this this year there's been a little bit of a change up at the club. Mentally wise, I just feel like Webby's got the boys playing with a lot of confidence. And I know we lost to the Raiders in Vegas in round one, and a lot of fans, were a little bit, maybe a bit overreaction after the first game. And which you understand, because you go into the off season, there's a bit of excitement over preseason. I don't really take too much note in preseason anyway, but I know people have high hopes. Obviously, that round one game wasn't the team we expected. We didn't expect such a performance. There's a lot of surprises there, and people were, questioning the selections. People were saying, well, Harris DeVita, and Metcalf is a halves combination. People were saying they shouldn't be a halves combination after the first game. And I was the one to say, you got to be patient, give it a bit of time, and it will start to gel over time. And it has actually the past couple of months. But, what are you guys' thoughts on, some of these standout players so far this season? Who's really stood out for you guys? I know a lot of people, we all say Metcalf, your Halasimers, CNAX. But is it like anyone else in particular you guys think that's really stand out, or is it these particular players that you guys want to, fully note in your standouts this season?
Yeah, all those guys are unreal, brother. And like they'll definitely be the first names. You got your Aaron Clark, stuff like that. One name I want to put up there, because I feel like there's a little bit of chat on it, but there was a lot of chat of this player, especially in 2024. After in the 2023 season, he came over and he kind of boomed for us pretty early on. That's Jackson Ford. Moving from the edge to the middle. I think with periods that we've lost Mitch Barnett now for the season, and within this little period, he stepped up and really taken his game to another level there. His error rates come down significantly from last year, and whether that's due to him bouncing around different positions and Webby just trying to, make it work with him. I feel like he's coming to this season and he really hasn't put a foot wrong. A lot of people obviously questioning that Raiders game from him, but a lot of that came to maybe a couple of different factors in that game, so the rotational pieces. There was a lot of questions on Webby's rotations, but as soon as Webby sort of learned, how to play him, where to play him off the bench in that middle part of the game, he's averaging like 150 meters, 170 meters per game at the moment. That Raiders game without Fish and Barnett, he ran for 200 meters in that game, close to like 90 post contact and all that. So he produces such good platform for us mid part of the game when we do bring off our big boys of Fisher Harris and Aaron Clark for a little bit of a spell. I think Jackson Ford does a great job in the middle there and really carries it over and allows our young boys to to shine on that level too, with him doing all the dirty work. So just wanted to shout his name out because there's so many people to shout out because we've had a great season and everyone's playing well. But I think that's one name I want to put out there for people to be like, hey, people had thoughts about him before. Hopefully it's changed a little bit about him right now.
Ford's a really good one because I think Mitch Barnett going down, in some ways, it's a blessing in disguise because he's a big minute guy, and I think there's been a lot of options with those front rowers, and so I think, me personally, I've wanted Murata to move into that middle rotation. I've wanted him to be in there. I don't think he offers much in attack on that edge. Sometimes defensively we've needed to put him there, which is good, but he's a scary motherfucker. I think if you put him in the middle, he's just another guy you don't want to have to deal with. Webby said when he transitioned Mitch Barnett to become a prop, he gave a bit of an overview on what he thought the modern day front rower should be and like how it's changing. And he liked Mitch because he's a bit taller and he's a bit more agile and stuff. And I think Ford has got a really awkward sort of body shape. He's got these, when he goes into contact, he takes these big long strides with his legs and, well, of course, with his legs. And he kind of, he's just this really awkward shape to tackle. He goes in with full impact. He's quite quick as well. So he's just this hard guy to handle there. And what that does is it kind of stretches that middle defense around him, but it creates opportunities for guys like Egan. So Ford's a great shout. The other guy I want to shout out is Chanel. Yeah. So I think, he's one of those guys who was around the squad. He's taken time out. He's come back in. And he has grown and grown and grown every week, just doing the tough stuff, the simple stuff really, really well, making sure he's defending really well, first and foremost. But you're seeing now his role increasing. He's taking a lot of pressure off Luke Metcalf, and they can't all just focus on him now. They have to watch Chanel. So he's becoming responsible for a lot more of the try assists as we're seeing in the previous few games. So massive shout out to him.
100%.
Yeah, and hello to Jose in the chat. Good to see you, Jose. Hope you're doing well. He's saying round 15 was boring as. Glad the boys are back. Yep, it was definitely not the greatest of rounds, to be quite honest. But yeah, look, I do, yeah, I feel like obviously, Harris Tavita as well, and I know lots been made of him, at the start of the season. People weren't too sure whether he would, be that sort of guy to come in and play in the halves with Metcalf, and I know a lot of people were very high on Tamari Martin coming into the side, and Tanner Boyd as well has been still absolutely killing in that cup side. He's just been on fire, but he's going to struggle to still get in this first grade side based on form and the current players now. But I think Harris Tavita's been good. I feel like I want him to play his best game, for us against the Sharks, and probably best game of the season. And he's been playing good footy, no doubt about it. But I think that was one of his better games we've seen from Harris Tavita in a while. But him and Metcalf, I think they're only just, scratching the surface, as they say. And I think Webby mentions that the team's still only scratching the surface with how they're going. They're not getting too high on these wins. They're not being too low when they've lost games. So yeah, what are your guys' thoughts on how Webby's been so good with how he's approached it week in week out for the side. He's sort of taken it each week. He doesn't go hot too high on the highs of wins, lows and lows of the losses. So yeah, what are your thoughts here on how Webby's really getting this side up each week, and they're really confident. The boys are really confident. They're playing very well. And you can see the culture of the club really building. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that, Ash?
Yeah, bro. Yeah. Oh, bro. You know how big of a fan I am of Webby, and I do think that for his third year as a full time head coach in NRL, like he obviously said at the start of the season the learnings he had of last year, and I never really held him a lot to what happened of last year for a lot of things, because there was like the perfect storm sort of what was happening of last year, and he's kind of shown again that he can put a group together and really instill what he believes what wins games. As you touched on before, you can usually tell what a good coach of just how he speaks, right? Especially to the media, and how he portrays himself across. And I feel like, a lot of football sides emulate either their leader as a player and also their leader as a coach. And I think we do very similar things. Like, he seems like a very consistent character that, holds himself accountable when he needs to, but also, he's willing to praise the boys and give them a lot of time and loyalty to, fix up the wrongs that they've had. And I find that such a good it's such a good skill for a coach to have, right? Ivan was very good at that for his coaching career as well, and I think that he's learned a lot of Ivan going to Penrith, and he said that a lot too. He's learned a lot there, and with Cam Serraldo, and just bouncing around when he was at the Tigers as well. And he's kind of putting it all together at the moment. Like, we finally got a coach that, for me, doesn't sway the way of, he's really too hard on the boys, so he loses the culture of, the Warriors in that sort of sense, right? Where you could have had that with like a Nathan Brown type, or, a lot of people calling for a Jeff Tuvies back in the day, stuff like that. But then he's like, you got the opposite side of some other boys, he's not too soft with the boys that you can see there too. He's willing to give them time. He's willing to, give them little lessons there. And I think it's just showing out there in that football field, like how much they love playing for Andrew Webster and what he's kind of instilled with this team. And I think that you summed it perfectly there, brother, where you said he's not too high and not too low. And I think that just builds consistency. And as a Warriors, as a franchise, that's something we've missed for a long period of time. And like, I know Warriors fans, a lot of them are so critical of like certain things in the game. They, obviously they want to nitpick on certain things and try to make every time, like trying to make the team better in whatever sense of the world. But I think, there's a lot of things where we can sit back now and just kind of be like, hey, he's building something nice. Like, just like, let's ride it. He's done more right than wrong. Like, if you actually think about it, like, I challenge a lot of people to kind of question what he's done wrong in the last, how many years. So what's your thoughts, Anton? Like, because I know I'm a massive fan, so.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know much about him when he joined the club, but he's in his third year now, and I think this is a good chance to where you can actually sit back and look at what he's done. The first year, you don't you don't know whether it's the coach or whether it's the mixture of external ingredients or that particular roster that's responsible for the results necessarily. We obviously had a great year that year. The next year was a down year. But I think what we're seeing develop now, and I think this is not just Webster, I think it's a credit to the entire coaching staff going through the grades. They're all on the same page with what our system is. So that message has gone right down through all of the rank, and we're seeing it pay dividends in the other grades, which I know you guys are going to get to later on. But I think once that happens, then it becomes very easy for those players who are playing in those other teams to come into that system and to not have to change anything about what they're doing and not have to be really coached in a way. They just have to feel like they're connected to the team that's playing there and be welcomed in, and to have the confidence of the players around them to just, hey, just do your thing, bro. I think that interview with, I think it was with Luke Metcalf last week when he talked about Sam Healy coming into the squad. Yeah. It was a late call up, and Sam only found out, I think it was the day of, that he was playing NRL. And so, Luke just came up to him and said, look, don't try and play like Wade plays, just play like you play, mate. And if you see something, go for it. If not, just listen to my voice, and I'll be the one calling the shots, sort of thing. And that was really cool to hear, that like you just got a guy coming in, he's got no pressure on him. He can still play the way he wants to play, but there's enough kind of like structural sort of stuff that's happened in the New South Wales Cup where Webby doesn't have to overcoach these guys now. He can just manage. He can manage the morale and the connectedness of the squad and keep them together, because Roger even said in his socials this week that it's, they do everything together. They leave the field together. When they go for coffee, they all go together. And it's just little things like that. You actually, you see it in how they defend and how much they're enjoying each other's company. And when you're on the road all the time, that's important. So I think he's done a great job in instilling that. And, each week we don't see us ever start bad. I think in years gone by, we've often started a bit lazy and we're slow to get out of the blocks and playing catch up. I think we've scored the first try in the last 7 games or something. Yeah. So that's really telling that he's getting our guys up for every game.
And to that point, on connectiveness and stuff, like I'm not too sure, how many people out there have read Ivan Cleary's book, but where he was kind of going through, his key areas why the Panthers got to where they got to, and like he had a moment there in his career where he was kind of disregarding their, I wouldn't say cultural nights, but their connection nights, they call it. I think it was a coach came in, a strength and conditioning coach, and said, hey, can we just jump over this and that? And then the boys had a really, down couple of weeks, and he had a down period, and he kind of tied it back to just the connectiveness of the group. So he made that the most important part of his system at Penrith. And I think Webby's learned a little bit of that over his time with the Warriors as well. It was, hearing a lot of rufflings of last year. There was not as much connectiveness. The preseason was shorter than usual, and there was a lot of things going on there. And during the season, there's a lot of breaking of. You could just see it out in that football field, a lot of disconnected boys out there. But in this season, as I said, in Ivan Cleary's book, he got very good at, delegating his tasks, stuff like that, so he can focus on the real stuff as a head coach. And I think Webby's obviously done that, as you said, Anton. The coaches around the club, TJ's done an amazing job with the Harold Matt side. Now you're seeing him in the coaching box for NRL. He's doing a lot of stuff for the Flag side at the moment, which I'm thinking he's coaching right now. The New South Wales Cup coach is doing amazing things there too, and he's delegating all his tasks to all these boys, and they're all doing the right job there, so he can focus on the right things, like bringing the boys together, connectiveness, and what they're doing out in that first grade football squad. And again, just everything's looking great at the moment. It's hard not to be happy.
Yeah, and I feel like it's it's hard not to get excited with the with the future of the club, not just now, in the next couple of years, because I think Webby, shout out to Cappy as well. He's doing a great job in the background. He's been able to get these players, and we've often struggled over the years to recruit players, and it's basically because obviously we're based in New Zealand. You got those Aussie clubs as well. It's really hard to attract some of those Aussie based players or some of the Kiwi-based players to stay at the club for the long term future. But obviously, you can't keep everyone. But you love to be able to keep some of those junior talents in the side. But speaking of junior pathways, Ash, look, the pathways are thriving at the moment. We're doing very well. The emergence of Vaimawanga, Laban, Lekaliasima. You've got Bishop Neal as well, who just re-signed last week. All these names, could be at the club for the next couple of years, and we could see the excitement, the development of these players. And of course, we've got Leka as well. Leka's been absolutely killing it. So, Ash, what are your thoughts? The junior pathways is thriving at the moment this season. We've got our Harold Matthews Cup side. They won back-to-back premierships. And they beat the Knights only a couple months ago in that grand final. And also TJ, actually, you did mention it. He's been doing a great job there. Obviously, he's now taken over that coaching role at the Jersey Flegg Cup side in the under-21s, and he's done a great job. Shout out to David Togitatoa as well as New South Wales Cup coach.
Yep.
There was an article going on last week, I believe, where he was talking about how he was one of the big parts of what the club's doing at the moment. So I don't know, Ash, if you read that article, saw that article, but what are your thoughts here on how the pathways are tracking on and the emergence of some of these younger players that we're really excited for?
Yeah, unbelievable, bro. It's been no secret for a long period of time. New Zealand's always had an incredible athletical talent. There it just needed to be kind of nurtured and get to a point to where there's like a genuine pathway from a junior, like let's say a kid in high school or even before that, to become a warrior in the future. And I think the quick thing I want to touch on before I go kind of delve a little bit more into it is, I say it on Wise Up TV all the time, but what the club's doing right now is not only just good for the Warriors, but it's good for New Zealand Rugby League in general. The Kiwis are going to benefit from it in the future, where the system's going to get all the way down to these junior kids. They're going to know how to play very good systematic rugby league from a very young age, which has been a problem for New Zealand Rugby League for a long period of time. Like, there hasn't been a very good systems over there. All the boys I know that have come over and played rugby league in Australia, coming from New Zealand, they tell me about the differences of styles, how it plays. And now hearing that, obviously, it's getting a little bit more technical. The boys are learning how to play proper systematic rugby league is a very good sign, and it's showing a lot out of these young kids that are taking it, that have athletic ability, but then now they've got the footy IQ that's to add on top of that, right? So we're seeing the emergence of these boys here, like Vaimawanga. When he came through, especially Laban as well, sort of around that COVID period time, where a lot of our club wasn't meant to actually produce these players in that period of time. It was supposed to be the next 5 or so years that we're going to be waiting on before we get to see the emergence of kids like this. But they've just pushed through this period. They've really stuck to the system. Like, full credit to these boys. They've worked really, really hard to get to their level. And we can see the potential of these guys, absolutely amazing. And Leka, on the back of that, he's seen these kids come through, and Vaimawanga and all the hard work they did over when they had to go over to Redcliffe and stuff like that. Leka was very young at that age. When I first saw him at SG Ball, I could see just the talent that he had. And I was like, oh, here we go. All right, now I'm starting to see the system start to pick up some really nice pieces. And we're nurturing him really, really nicely. Like with Leka, we brought him through. We did jump him to New South Wales Cup fairly early, but he seemed to swim in that water. And then when we kind of gave him a little bits of taste of first grade, and a lot of people are calling for him really early this year, and Webby's just kind of like giving him a little bit of leash every so often, 30 minutes here and there, 20 minutes, 19, this and that. But then when they've given the opportunity to do so, like get their bigger minutes, they're thriving, and they're really, they're hitting a whole new level. Underneath that, he touched on a couple of names there we've re-signed, but Bishop Neal, a lot of people are starting to talk about now. Really big athletic body, but again, if we continue to nurture our systems, he's going to learn the little intricacies of being an edge back rower or a middle forward in the future if he does transfer into that, running really nice lines. And it's not just on athletic ability over time. Jason Salalilo, who's been incredible for New South Wales Cup when he's jumped up there, but we found him in Flegg this year. He's played really great football. I'm expecting more out of him in the future as well. And then just seeing like the ability of us, getting the best out of players like Jet Cleary that, I know there's a lot of hype behind the name, but Jet wasn't actually playing his best football in that last year of Penrith. He had a couple of injuries he's dealing with, but Penrith actually not sure if he was ever going to hit any sort of potential. He come to the Warriors, the first couple of games, he took a little bit to settle in, but now we're starting to see a little the inroads of a guy that's going to have some sort of a career in first grade, whether it's with the Warriors, whether it's going back home. We're not too sure, but, it's showing that, players are coming over, playing their best football under us, but we're also nurturing these kids like Bishop, Neal, and that is coming through the grades that are hitting all new levels. So the future's very, very bright, bro. As I said, to start off everything, it's not just good for New Zealand Warriors Rugby League, it's good for New Zealand Rugby League in general that we're doing this right now. And as an Aussie, right, I'm an Aussie-based Warriors fan, I'm an Australian Kangaroos, obviously, fan, when it comes to international time, it is going to be a threat to us in the future. The Kiwis are going to be a major threat for a long period of time. It's always been 50-50 for a little while there. But now it's going to end up taking a whole new level, and these kids learn how to play some real good, proper football and from a young age. Rugby union is, not they're working hand in hand together now, where there's pathways for kids to go rugby union or rugby league now, and not just rugby union and just bash football, basically, which was rugby league back in the day over there.
Yeah, I think the major turning point for us has been the introduction of all of these kind of age group teams. Because if you remember back to the days of the Toyota Cup, where we had success in the past, a lot of those boys were just rugby union players, and they were freak talents that were taken across from rugby union, and because of their skill, they hadn't actually spent much time in the sport, but they were good enough to beat other sides at that level, and then they thought they had it made, and they'd go into first grade and they get shown up pretty quickly. The other teams, study their strengths, and they kind of go, okay, this is how to take down that player. And because they haven't had that education coming up through different grades and the opportunity to drop back down when they need to go away and learn something, it's what happens is they end up leaving for another club, or I think back to players like Solomon Akata, for example. He's a good example of a guy who had a breakout season, and he held his own in the Warriors for ages, but I just wonder if we had that little step below where he could have dropped back down when things got a bit harder and stayed in our system, whether he could have learned a bit more of those things, and now he's lost to the game altogether.
Agreed.
So just little things like that, I think have set us up for success. So, and we're going to see it much more in the future, where there's kids who have come from 15, 16 years old in our system. They've come right through. So they've had all of the luxury of learning that system and coming through that system before they even get anywhere near NRL. So that's a major change for our club. We've never had it before. And I think, guys like Sifakula or Vaimonga now and Halasima and those boys and Laban, they're kind of the first cabs off the rank, but Webby's done really well in waiting. He could have easily blooded those guys when the time got tough, when at the back end of 23, coming into 24, they had a lot of raw talent. He could have easily popped them in and sort of played them for big minutes, but he didn't. Craig Bellamy did the same with Will Warbrick as well, who was a rugby union convert. He took ages with him. And I think you get the benefits over time if you take your time with these players. And so I'm just really thrilled that it seems like he's realized, okay, these guys are ready, let's do it. And they're rewarding the faith. It's really cool to see.
Agreed.
Yeah, no, like I say, I've just been great to see that we have some of these players coming through, because obviously years ago we had no general pathway system to go upon. I know when we were based in Australia, we were relying on players from the Dolphins, and we didn't have a pathway system to call upon. And here we got our New South Wales Cup side, we got our our under 21s flag, Matt's team. And also we've got a women's team coming into the NRLW this year as well, which I think it's just exciting times at the club at the moment. Just look at the future. Obviously, got a few others, that are Tyson Hansen's another one. I think a shout out to him. And Ronald Buford. Some of these younger players, they've got some real potential, and we know that their future is going to be bright as well. But so much to look forward to as well. With some of the pathways players at the moment, and good signs ahead too, and no doubt about the coaches down there. That system will be helping them as well further develop their careers. And of course, the aim is one day getting to that first grade side. I'm sure that will come over time. So I just want to pop into the chat as well. I'm going to read through some of these comments. So just give me a sec. So Mez is just saying here, Crosby, Farialofa, and Sio Amatanai should be in the top 30 squad. What do you reckon, Ash? Do you think in the future, maybe next year we'll see them in that top 30 NRL squad?
Yeah, it's got to be it's got to get a point where it's going to be a tough slog for a lot of these kids to find their way in there, because we are developing some really good ones, right? But there's a couple of good names there within the next couple of years, like Fatai Lofa, bro. He's been unbelievable in Cup. I've really enjoyed what he's doing there. A ton of speed for an edge back rower, especially for his size. Works really well. Eddie Iamia Tuava, I'm pretty sure he got a top 30 spot this year, but he's doing very great things. Like, a lot of these kids, we'd love to give spots to like all these great talents that we have down there. But they just need more time to learn and grow. Like Crosby's an incredible talent that we have there in Cup at the moment, and he's slowly adding pieces to his game. It may take a little bit longer before we get to see him maybe further into first grade, or maybe longer minutes in New South Wales Cup. So we'll have to wait and see. The last one, Sio Kali. I think he's the one at the moment that I'm really watching out for to see if he can take another step to his game. I think injuries have held him back a little bit, but he's probably our outside back that I'm like, yeah, I really enjoy the look of him. Like, you look at like Lek Alasima, the way he uses his bumpers, stuff like that. Like, Sio Kali's got that, but more of an outside back sort of frame, like moves really well. So very, very excited for that. And lastly, quickly before, with our pathways and stuff like that, and just our system in general, I think our biggest credit to our system is the whole Tanner Boyd situation, and how Tanner's come to the club and he's growing as a halfback step by step. And there was a moment where the Cowboys were offering a first grade opportunity for him, whether it was playing hooker or just getting first grade minutes and that sort of sense. And a lot of younger kids, or people that want to play first grade, as Tanner probably would do, would just jump at that opportunity just to play. If he's going to play number 9, he's like, yeah, I'll probably get halfback later on, but get some minutes in first grade. But he's trusted the system enough to be like, hey, I'm going to be a halfback here. I'm going to work at my craft and continue to get it. And maybe it does come to a Perth Bears contract at the end of it, or whatever comes to the future. And we're able to build systems that way. And I hope that, that's probably the biggest tick to our system, is that someone like Tanner said, nah, I want to stay with the Warriors at the moment. I'm doing good things, hopefully win a premiership there in New South Wales Cup. And then maybe he can get bigger opportunities elsewhere. And that's due to him trusting our system and also doing the hard work in behind the scenes. So that's a big tick for us.
Yep. And I think, is there anything more you'd like to add on, guys, in the pathways area? Is there anything you'd like to add on to that, Ash, or is it you think you've
who do you like watching, Anton? You watch a lot of New South Wales Cup and all that. I know you do.
I don't actually watch a lot of it with the two kids.
You don't?
I don't have a lot of time, mate. But I have been seeing a lot of highlights and clips and things. I think of all of the names that you've mentioned, the ones that I've seen. Also Crosby. He looks like a little Liam Martin clone.
Yeah.
I just love the shape of that guy,
the
and
look of him,
the aggression and the power of him. I think he's a guy that if we can keep in our system, that'd be really cool. I just think more generally as well. When we've had players leave the club, it would have been really easy for McFadden to go shopping. He could have very easily gone out there and signed like a Daniel Alvaro type, like from years gone by, and just gone, help, we've got roster spots to fill. Let's just plug them up. But the faith that they've shown in the younger guys to come in and play those roles, it's a kind of it's really advantageous to our salary cap as well. So if a proper marquee does come along, we're in a position to jump, but we don't jump for the sake of it, because we've got faith in the guys that are coming through, and when they are coming in, they are doing a good job. So I think the players would actually take a lot of faith from that they're not being overlooked for someone else from Australia getting paid 3 times as much to do the same job. The coaches are giving them the respect and the faith to go out there and do a job for us. So I think that really helps to build squad morale right through the grades.
Very good.
Yep. And just on this comment here from Macau, who's saying, I think if the Warriors can stay consistent, they'll be in the top 4 at the business end of the season. The biggest issue is losing games to teams they should be beating, which, I mean, I do agree that we should be finishing top 4 at the end of the year, but obviously we've actually been beating the teams that we know. I think this year we've done pretty well in that sort of department with beating teams that we normally we have in the past had struggled. With the bottom sides we don't tend to beat, but on that one, but that's I think we should be in that mold to be able to finish in that top 4 at the moment. We're currently in the top 4, so yeah. So anyway, so moving on. So Aaron Clark, talk about Aaron Clark. Aaron Clark's incredible season. Is he a lock of the year in the NRL? And yeah, how do you guys feel like he's been going this season? Because I know a lot of a lot of people were actually quite excited about the sign of Aaron Clark, and I was sort of on the fence a little bit with it. But Ash, what are your thoughts? How he's been tracking on? He's been, I think for me, he's been exceeded expectations, hasn't he? He's done very, very well. And just based on what his form is, has been so consistent week on, week out. But what are your thoughts on how Aaron Clark's been going back at the club? Obviously, club that he used to play for in his junior years, coming back from the Titans. What are your thoughts on how his form has been?
Yeah, unbelievable, bro. Anton kind of touched on it to start the live stream as well. Like we've seen Aaron Clark play 13 before, at times with the Gold Coast Titans, but that just didn't give him enough of a push in that area. Like he always got either pushed back into a front row position or a off the bench to the hooker position, sometimes starting hooker. And they kind of like really were pushing him around in multiple different ways, and he kind of didn't know where he stood. And coming over to the club, and I think Webby just going, hey, this is what your job is. I want you to go do this job. And he's just been doing that like unbelievably, right? When we lost Tohu to start the season, the retirement of Tohu, I was sitting there going, bros, that's just another loss, another major loss. Adam Fanor-Blake was a major loss, and all these meters and stuff the stats that people always bringing up. This guy has held up his end of that bargain, right? He's really brought that part of his game very similar to what we were touching on with Jackson Ford as well, with different type of frames, how they work on a side. Like Aaron's, obviously not the tallest bloke on the field, right? But he's just got that real solid frame. He's real low center of gravity. Whenever he finds contact, he's on hands and knees, quick play to ball speeds. And a lot of our best tries this season have come off his quick play to ball, right? The Luke Metcalf try with the Dolphins game, quick play to ball. Luke saw some broken field there, a little grubber in behind. That moment happened there. Just multiple moments like that. I'm pretty sure the Rabbitohs try, long field effort came off of Aaron Clark's quick play to ball as well. I think the Dimitri Vaimwanga, was it the Sharkies try? I think that came off Aaron Clark's quick play to ball as well. Like there's always big moments that he's had for us this year that kind of do go unnoticed. Actually, I wouldn't say that because I think a lot of Warriors fans have noticed exactly what he's giving to our boys out there, and he's been one of everyone's favourites. And I think he's definitely in the box seat for lock of the year. And I think he's also box seat at the moment. He's fighting with Terrell May for the buy of the season as well, in my opinion anyway. I think he's been absolutely incredible for our club.
Yeah, I was a really big fan of the signing when it happened, and mostly because the hit our middle had taken, and just losing Fanor-Blake, we needed a big body in the middle that was going to make a lot of tackles. And from what I've seen of him playing in the middle, he can do that. He's a Kiwis rep, but I think what's become more apparent to me as the season's gone on is when you hear him talk. And when he talks, he's kind of like he's a Warriors junior that was playing hooker when he was here. He was coming off the bench as a 14. In his own admission, he was quite arrogant. He'd come from under 20s. He thought he was hot shit. He was playing NRL at a really young age. And then he couldn't quite crack into the regular first grade side, got an offer from the Gold Coast, and then he spent a few years over there. And I think, kind of seeing the Warriors become kind of what's happened, and, with the up the wires movements and all that sort of stuff, and hearing the feeling that New Zealand players get from going back home and wanting to be leaders in that club and make something special happen, you can definitely see that he's playing for the club. He's really playing for the jersey, the people around him, and people in New Zealand. It's more than just running out there for him and taking a paycheck. He really is invested in playing well for the team. And when you hear people talk like that, it's really encouraging as a fan, but it also shows that the strength of the message is getting through to everyone. Like everybody is playing above where they've played before. We even saw it with guys like Marcelo Montoya when he came over. Everyone was like, "We've got an NRL player here now. What the hell?" With Penny Zalesniak, he was kind of like, yeah, neither here nor there at the Dogs. He's come over and it's like, shit, he's in career best form. So there's something going on for sure. Like it's not just a group of players who are the best in their positions playing well. They're playing above their station because they're all playing tight and they're buying in. So I look around at the other locks in the competition. Isaiah Yo's had a down year. I think he's above him. Murray's out injured. And then you look at Pat Carrigan. He's playing a bit of prop. His team's all over the place. He's a great player, but has he been as consistent? And has he made as much of an impact for his side and the outcome that they've experienced week to week as Aaron Clark? No.
No.
He's had such a big impact on games. And I think for me, he's the lock of the year so far. It's his to lose. So consistent.
100%.
Yeah, and I said I did a bit of a video on TikTok last week talking about this Aaron Clark, and I did point out that he is. I think for me, like, based on what I've seen this season while watching all the games, I feel like he's been the most consistent 13 in the game this season. I just feel that's the way I feel. And you just see what his consistency on the field with his defence. He brings so much of a workhorse effort. He's if you look at his numbers in terms of his stats, he's well up there, and I know Ash is big on his stats as well. So he's been incredible. He's just been incredible. I just can't fault the performances that he's been producing on the field. And I like even in round one, I know the team wasn't playing particularly well, but I think he was our best player on the field. I think based on what I saw, I thought he was our best player on the field, and he was coming off the bench in that game. So. Yeah, I've got to say he's been great, and I feel like he should be in that contention to win Lock of the Year. I think he should win it, to be perfectly honest. There and Jacko's saying can't fault Clark. His fast play the balls are deadly to opponents. And I definitely do agree on that one, Jacko's.
Really... wild call here. I think he could be a future club captain.
I like that.
Yeah.
I see him jumping into Fisher's shoes as those guys get on their career. I think he's got that much of a presence in that pack that I think he could definitely become an official leader as the years go on.
And Kiwi fans should get really excited. It opens up even more opportunities for the Kiwis by the end of the season, to where that could be a 13 for you guys to open up an opportunity to have a rotation of Tarpane, Leota, Fish, all these ways to have a really crazy rotation there, right? It may even become a point of, he might have to start off the bench, but what he's going to bring by the end of the season due to what he's had this season too. So again, it just adds to what the Warriors are doing now is amazing for the Warriors, incredible. But for international fans out there, New Zealand's going to be a real tough task this year, especially with all these boys playing in form footy.
He's just got to stay fit. That's the thing. All of those other locks I'm looking at from the rest of the competition, they've all had time in and out of the game. He's stayed fit, and we need him to stay fit. He's really important to us. Even if we have to manage his minutes towards the end of the season before finals, we're playing finals. He's, we might have to just manage the load of some of those guys, towards the end of the season. You see, teams like Melbourne Storm, when they've sort of banked those early points at the start of the season, you start seeing them start to do that. To just freshen up some of these guys before they get to finals. We might be in a position to do that for the first time ever. I can't remember,
Agreed,
which is pretty cool. Pretty cool. We've got to be smart about that.
Yeah, and obviously he's doing a good job, and like I felt going into the season, the big news of Tohu Harris announcing his retirement in the off season. I think the biggest question mark was who's going to play that, that role in the 13 jersey. And Aaron's really stepped up and made that spot his own. He's done a great job there, and you can't fault what he's been being able to produce each week. So I think there's more I can say on Aaron Clark. Could praise him every stream because he's done so well. So he's just been incredible. So. Another player who, we signed in the off-season was James Fisher-Harris. Now, James Fisher-Harris this season, what do you guys, what do you guys make of, his role on the field and off the field? How much of an impact has he brought, to the side, because I think he's obviously he's done well. He's been playing some good games there and then, but we've also seen him on the sidelines as well. So we'll go to Anton first. Actually, I'll ask Anton this one. What are your thoughts on JFH, man? He's obviously, we know, inspirational leader on and off the field. What he's brought to the Kiwis over the years as well. So, and Penrith as well in those premierships. So, what do you make of, JFH's impact on and off the field this season? What do you think he's brought to the table?
I think so. Last year, I put a tweet out. It was quite a kind of mid-season because we were doing a bit shit. And it was kind of one of those kind of, thoughts I had. And I just said, if your club could sign any player, regardless of salary cap, doesn't matter what position they play, and you could just have them in your team, who would it be and why? And all these players were saying Nathan Cleary and all these kind of players. And the one I was saying was Fisher Harris, because I just felt like, I really felt that that's what we needed at the time, was just a prop. But more than that, I felt like we needed someone who, the rest of the players would just follow no matter what happened, both on and off the field, not just when he's on, but also training standards, all of those types of things. A guy who knows how to win and to get guys up for big games. So when it actually happened, I just about fell off my chair. I was like, because we'd lost Fanor Blake and we were all kind of going, well, crap. Oh, well, it was nice while it lasted 2024. This is going to suck again for another few years. Oh, well. Yep. And then when we signed him, I thought, okay, let's see what happens here. It's impossible to say what he does off the field because he doesn't talk much, and people you don't actively see what he does, right? But you hear players talk about it. You hear the coach talk about it when he enters the room. How players don't want to look lazy around him. They don't want to show up to the gym after him. All of those little things too, because he's so goddamn scary and serious all the time.
Yeah.
Like you don't want him just looking at you with that kind of like, it's not good enough, man. You don't want that face coming at you in the gym, So I feel like just even those little things like that, just setting those standards. Mitch Barnett was already a leader like that for our guys, but to have a Kiwi grown force in the sheds, I think it's a really big deal for those young guys coming through too. They must look at him like he's a conquering warlord or something, So I think, his value's been immense. His form on the field, especially to the start of the season, there was a bit iffy, to be honest, especially in those early couple of games. He missed a couple of weird tackles that led to tries. Don't know if you can remember some of those ones, but
yeah, the rock,
that's a bit, I don't remember that being part of your game, but it seems like, that's kind of cleared up out of his game a little bit sort of thing. But I think what he brings off the field, those intangible things, are even more important than what he brings on the field. I think we can cover him skills-wise, but we can't cover him leadership-wise.
Agreed. Yeah, right on the back of that, like, just as Anton said, you don't really know what he does behind the scenes because you're not within those four walls. But when you see the performances of what the boys are putting out there, especially, with him in and out of the side as well, or even just in general for the season, you can see that there's a decent change there. I as people would have known, my belief on Fish and comparatively to, you got your incredible individual talents like your Adam Fanor Blakes and your Payne Haas's, these incredible prop fours athletically, they're just big bodies, they move so well. And I think that it's great to have those guys, right? Like it's great to have these juggernauts in the middle that are, gaining all these massive meters, but when boys on the outside of it aren't really, they're putting in sometimes 5 or 6 out of 10s and stuff. It's just not really coinciding with, when you look at Fish, he'll go out there, maybe, for a lot of people, again, when you watch rugby league and you see Fish out there, you don't really go, oh, Fish is just this outstanding character like Adam Fanor Blake going for 200 meters per game. But everyone else is picking up all those other meters, right? And he's doing his job as just this big mongrel in the middle that's just leading team out there. He hasn't got to run for like 150 meters per game. He doesn't need to because everyone's in it with him. And that's the best talent that Fisher Harris has. And it's no better than when, Fish is pulled out of that Penrith Panthers squad this year with Jerome Luai and whatever's happening with the Penrith Panthers this year. But, they're starting to lose a little bit of that. They have a little bit of that frailty in their defense. it's just that little piece that he had that he was giving to the Penrith Panthers in years past that, connected with us. And it's a very similar sort of thing what happened when Critter went to the Dogs, right? Critter's just instilled this belief. I believe there's also that little added thing of Fish knows of Andrew Webster. They were together. He kind of can echo the coach's call a little bit better than maybe what happened in the past because he was able to do so in Penrith as well. Very similar with Serrato and Critter. When Serrato says something, Critter will amplify and say, nah, boys, I know this works, so we're going to do it this way. As Anton said, when Fish says, we're going to do it this way, you're not going to say anything else, right? You're going to follow this man because he's been through it all. He can show the rings on his fingers to show for it too. So the impact is immense, bro. And on-field impact, what I love about Fisher Harris, he's brought back mongrel to the New Zealand Warriors. Seeing him in that Dolphins game where he was hitting the face of everyone, he was bringing boys with him. Aaron Clark was stepping to a new level with this feistiness they had. Mitch Barnett was saying in the preseason they were worried about, some of the stuff they're doing at the ruck. When those boys were together, they were a nasty duo in the middle there. The ruck was dirty, bro. They're seeing knees getting dropped into rib cages. There was just some nasty stuff going on there. That's what I love as a rugby league fan because, they're in the contest every day. They're willing to go into the wit's end to bring out a victory. And that's what he brought to the club, and I absolutely adore it. And again, it's not my example of that too. Just quickly before I jump off, if you watch the Sharks games, it's not just in defense he does that. In attack he does that. There was a couple of times there where he ran outside, or he was attacking the three-in defender, which usually is your half. He caught Nico Hines one time. And Nico barely kind of grabbed him. He was trying to work his way back into the line. And Fish, because he adds, I think it was in a tackle, he also grabbed the leg of Nico Hines and grabbed him back in towards the ruck while Nico was trying to charge back into the line. Just those little things that people don't look at, and it just opens up opportunities, and that's what he brings to the side.
I saw him doing that in the trial too against the Sharks in Shark Park. So one of the guys came out of the line and shoved Jacob Laban.
Yep.
And when he was running back, and he was running back to the line, and Laban just kind of turned around, looked at him, and Fish moved to his side of the field. He basically he squared him up, and he got him on the ground. And once the play had moved on, he had a right carry on with him. But he looked for him about 3 times over the next 3 sets. But I think that sort of thing, looking out for your forwards, looking out for your pack, it's one thing to assemble a team, but it's another thing to bring them all together. And I think he's one of those. He's like a binding agent for us. So when everyone's looking for someone to follow on the field, you just have to look at him and you kind of remember what the job is to do. It's a simple job. Don't lose your composure, because I think he's kind of like hurricane proof. His face, it just doesn't move. Just kind of the same expression all the time.
And just to really nail that point home too, you look at the best props of all time, or the props that win everything in our competition, right? You think of Shane Webke's, right? You think of Lazarus's. You think of these guys that are willing to get down dirty. They're not the biggest athletic phenoms that we've had in the competition. Majority of the time, those guys come and go and they win maybe 1 or 2 premierships here and there, but usually it's too far in between. Was it Andrew Fafita was more so towards his end of his career before he won his, and people remember how dominant he was as a prop in early days. But a lot of those props that are able to bring everyone with them, like a Shane Webke and, these Buddha boys, Petro Senevasivas and stuff, that haven't got the athletic, Lazarus, they haven't got the athletic top side of what a Jason Tamalolo or these other boys have, but they win games due to they bring everyone with them. And I think there's a key thing to that. We had Adden and we saw the best out of Adden, but there was this little thing of when it comes to the top grade, there's something there. We're seeing it Payne Haas is doing it in State of Origin, this and that. But with the Broncos, they've had Paddy and these boys with him, and they just can't really get to that over edge. You look at, the Panthers when they had Fish and Leota, it was just another level above because they brought everyone with them. They played as a side instead of having this individual juggernaut in the middle. And I think there's something to that with rugby league.
We saw it with Clark too. How I was talking about how Aaron talks. And how it really comes through that he's really playing for more than just himself. He's really playing for the team, the club, his country. Fish came back to do that. He could have picked any team he wanted in the comp. He could have stayed a Panther for life, but he chose to came back because he wanted to become a leader here, and he wanted to live in New Zealand, and he wanted to play for New Zealanders. And the way he talks and the way he conducts himself. It's just become something for everyone to look up to within the club too. So those things rub off.
Agreed.
Yeah. You guys both summed it up very well. And I do, feel like when we signed Fish Harris, I was like, wow, I couldn't believe we actually signed a player like him. From Penrith. He's won four comps in a row. He's an experienced player, he's a leader. He's a great player, and obviously, I didn't think we could actually pull that signing off. And obviously, he wanted to come home with family reasons and all that sort of stuff, and. Since we signed him, look, he's always brings that, he's bringing that, mana to the side, like they say. He's, something that the side really, probably lacked over a couple of years, to be honest. But I think he's done a great job so far, and he's really pulling a few performances in, each week. He's just a really good player that we have at the club, and he's really impactful in what he brings on and off the field, I believe, too. So, yeah, and just to pop in and look at some of the comments. Yeah, so the comments got here. Hello. So everyone's good to see a lot of interaction in the chat tonight. So I'll just get this comment up here from Jacko. So Jacko's just saying here that Fish comes out of Panthers pack with all out, but a grubby yeah, he definitely does. And we'll just read this one, Daniel. So Daniel's saying he's absolutely bullied the Dolphins when he played, and they couldn't say or do anything. So, bro, I'm pretty sure he's talking about Fisher Harris, or he's talking about someone else. I'm not too sure he's talking about there, but yeah, he's talking about Fisher Harris there. So, yeah, because I saw some comments just mentioning about the Dolphins. So, I know he was talking about the Dolphins game there. So, yeah, just a couple of other things to touch up on before we do end the live. See, we've gone on for an hour now, so we'll touch on a couple more things before we get on out of here. So, first things I want to touch on is the back end of the season. So now we would look at the draw coming up, Ash.
Yep.
And Anton, what are you guys' feelings now in terms of the position where you think we can finish at the end of the season? What ladder position should we be looking at targeting? Personally, I feel like we should be targeting top two. I feel like top two, you get 2 home finals. You get one in a prelim and one in week 1 of the finals. So I know where I felt like we went wrong a couple of years ago. We finished 4th, and we had to play. I think we had to play Penrith in week 1, and then we had to go to Brisbane and play Brisbane in week 3. So, yeah, Ash, what are your feelings around it? Obviously we're going to aim for top 4. That's first things first. That's the priority to get enough points, get enough wins to finish in that top 4 spot. But obviously, we're going to be challenging the likes of the Bulldogs and the Raiders for that top 2 spot at the moment. So, how do you feel about it, Ash? How do you feel about the position we're in at the moment with the ladder, and where do you think we can finish?
Yeah, honestly, bro, I'm sure the boys are I think we'll all be loving it if we can get top 2 for sure. And I'm sure the boys will be pushing for that, right? The boys are in really great form at the moment. We're playing really consistent football. For me, I don't want to really put a cap on the side or anything or give a rule we're top 4, we're going to stay top 4 at the moment, which we should do the way we're playing football. I'm just loving the way the season's kind of panning out. As if a season, for me, I always looked at the season as a transition year or setting our base to continue on for years on, right? So again, we don't want to see any fall off, and I don't think we will, just judging on how the boys are playing their football. We're set up real nicely. The next game up against the Panthers, it is heavily rumored that, the Panthers aren't bringing over Cleary and stuff. They're going to kind of, rest them for that period because the Perth state of origin. There's still a possibility of that, who knows? And I still think that we can still beat a Penrith squad that's full strength at the moment with the way we're playing football. But, these gives us opportunities to get these little wins to continue us on our ride home to hopefully get a top 2 spot for a home final. But in general, I'm very, very happy with the top 4 spot. Just judging on what we started off as a season, I would have been happy with the top 8 spot this season, but the way it's sort of panning out and the way the boys are playing consistent football, why not? Why can't we be top 4 side this year? Why can't we push for a top 2? Our run home's very nice. The buys do come fairly early, so it's a decent little track home. But the Tigers, the Knights, the Titans, a lot of these sides we are able to get over the top of, I believe. Dolphins are kicking into form. The Dogs are going to be a real good test as well. But we got a lot of these games where we should win. So I'm expecting at least a top 4 sort of spot still.
Yeah. I kind of hope the team aren't aiming for anything, because the moment you start looking at the ladder and how many points you got and all that sort of thing, you take your eye off the prize a little bit. And the players in Webby are very quick to shoot down any mention of where they sit on the ladder or all that sort of thing. They're very quick to shoot that down, because I think realistically with the buys in there and stuff, it's actually quite hard to tell where you sit, and everybody is still pretty close. And there's a long way to go in the season too. So I actually like where the buys have fallen for us this year. I hated last year's buys because we didn't have a buy till like the first Origin round, and by then we had so many busted ass players that we kind of all collapsed into the buy. Like, oh my God, I hardly had a full 17, and we'd had all those losses, and then we get a buy in the final round of the season when we're already eliminated. So it's no good to us then. Now at least I feel like we've had regular rests that have come at really good times for us. Round 18, we it's kind of early to have your last buy, but there'll be teams by that stage that are pretty much out of contention by that stage. So you'll be coming up against sides that have got nothing to play for. And our run home is pretty good in that light. There's a lot of sides that are down in the bottom 4 that we're going to come up against. So I think we're going to come out as the I'm just going to put it out there, minor premiers. I put money on it weeks ago because I was like, I think there's no reason why we can't if we keep winning. We have to beat the Bulldogs probably because they're not going to beat themselves. And even with players out yesterday, they were pretty damn impressive. They just keep that ball alive, and they're a very good side. Yeah. It was interesting talking to Jerome Luai at a Q&A the other week at the casino. I went along to that, and I asked him about his experience with Seraldo and Webster when they were assistant coaches. And he immediately picked me as a Warriors fan. I said, "Oh no, it's just a general question." He was like, "No, I saw the hat before you took it off." Anyway, so he said Webby was their attack coach when they were coming through the younger grades, and he said he says he knows all the shapes that the Warriors are running. He knows them all when he watches us on TV. But he said when the team is connected and together, you can't stop it. He said it's really, really hard to stop that when the whole team is defending as a unit and just fatiguing the other side into mistakes. And then you're actually good enough to capitalize. And he said, like, you guys are starting to gel and to click and to, realize the extent of that game plan. Whereas in the past, I think we've tried to execute it, but we've made errors in our own half and given them piggyback penalties. We're not doing that now. So I don't see any reason why we can't finish first in the regular season. I don't see why not. We will.
I love it.
Yeah, I'm just going to say it. Why not? What just dropped out of the 8 now? Far out. I shouldn't have said that.
Why not? Yeah, no.
I love that confidence, though. I love that confidence.
Yeah, let them come, I say. Far out.
Yes. Yeah.
As well, you got to be confident about your side, Bello. That's what you support a side for, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yes.
well, like I said, hopeful, right? That's who we are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'd say, like, for me, like, just looking at those games coming, I do feel like, well, a few of them, I feel like the majority of them are quite winnable. I know that, not everyone's, it's not an easy, no one's easy in this competition to beat, as we've seen with some of the results this season. We've seen some results which you don't expect. Well, this year, a lot of teams that you don't expect to be losing to the other team, and they end up losing. So, I do feel like at the moment, I think we can beat. This week we've got Penrith coming up at home, which I feel like it's a winnable game. And then, of course, we've got the Broncos. That will be a bit of a tricky one up there at Suncorp. Although in saying that, Brisbane haven't been too crash hot this season, to be honest. They've been a bit hit and miss. And then, of course, we've got the Tigers at home. We've got the Knights away. I mean, I feel like we can win a few of those games. That puts us in a good position to, cement our spot in that top 4. And then, push on to finish inside that top two, and I think we can finish in that top two spot. I think for me the only game I think will be the trickiest of all, the toughest one will probably be the Bulldogs, and it's based off obviously what the Bulldogs have been doing this season, and that game in Sydney that'll be I think that game, if we come into that game in a bit of good form, that could be a game which could be a top of the table sort of clash. It could be potentially, you just never know there on that one. But yeah, I do feel like we can finish top two, top four at least, and then top two. I think that should be our aim, and I think we can finish here. So yeah, and the human passport's just saying here, yeah, we'll win if we win the next two after the bye. That's 30 points and a great launching pad to top two. Yeah, absolutely. It definitely would be there. So yeah, I think that pretty much wraps it up, guys. I think we've really covered on a lot of things tonight. So just a quick prediction for the Penrith game. What are you boys thinking here? Penrith, how do you guys think we're going to go? Do you think well, obviously we're going to back the boys in. We're going to back us to win. But how do you think it's going to go this week up against Penrith, which will be interesting to see because obviously there's a lot of talks around Penrith resting their players in that due to Origin and Perth. So, Ash, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a really good opportunity to, again, like another really good statement game against a side that, in years past, people know of what the Panthers have produced and what they can produce. I think that with the way that they're playing football at the moment, they've had 2 wins now. Again, like not they're not completely convincing victories for me, in my opinion, for the Panthers to say the Panthers are back. I think the Panthers still dealing with their own things of like trying to get a connectivity back in their squad. They've had a lot of pieces that are let go of in years past as well. So I think that we can come out with a victory here, whether, the State of Origin players back up again or they don't. I reckon we are good enough to get a job done here, especially the way that we're playing football at the moment. We play high percentage football. The Panthers are, finding a little bit more errors than what they've had in the past. And we usually strike very well in those moments as well. So I think it's going to be a real close one, though. I think that, the Panthers definitely are in the hunt again. They feel a sniff, and when a team has a sniff, they'll be up for the contest. I'm going to go that 24-12 sort of range. I think a 1-12 sort of contest is probably just about right for me. Not judging on like early, I don't know who's going to be in the lineups. I don't really know what the weather's going to be looking like in Auckland over there. But I'm going to think about that. About a 1-12 contest where the Warriors, again, just after a bye, clicking back into gear and just continue to run their run home.
Yep.
Just looking at the weather for Saturday in Auckland, it looks like it's got 16 degrees and slightly cloudy. Oh, baby, I'm backing us in. So I think the Origin 5 are out. They're not going to fly that far. So we're coming up at it's almost like a cup side this week. And I think this is going to be a points differential thing for us where we get to level up a little bit. We're currently sitting on, where are we here?
Plus 30 something.
35, I think, plus 35. Raiders are plus 96 and the Bulldogs plus 98. I think we're gonna make a big inroads on that. I think the Panthers only score 1 try and it'll come through a piece of sheer brilliance from Blaze Talangi. Rate that kid. I just reckon he's going to do something freakish on his own and he'll score a try from it. And then it'll be all Warriors. I just don't think they'll be able to go with us. There'll be 15 minutes in the start where it's we go tit for tat, but once they start making errors, we'll put the foot down and I reckon we'll put 50 on them.
Oh, I love that. I would love that.
50 points to 4.
Oh, love that confidence. Really love it. Yeah.
Tanya's on the money in the chat. Good on you, Tanya.
Yeah, good. Tanya's already gone for the high scoring 50-12.
She's more generous than me with the 12, though.
12 for Penrith. Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah. I reckon I feel we'll win. I'm not going to go out and say 50 points, but that's just me being a bit, like as a Warriors fan, I'm generally just take it with a bit of nerves, regardless of where Penrith is at the moment. So I know we're playing well, we're playing good footy, but I think Penrith obviously they're going to be without some of the Origin players by the looks of things, and we should really win this one at home. I think Warriors 1-12. Yeah, I'll go a bit conservative there.
1-12.
Yeah, 1-12. I'm being a bit conservative.
Oh, goodness
On
me.
a bit of the edge sort of thing there, but
I can't say
it's
too much.
the
I
killer
predicted the
Warriors
same.
fan feeling comes in. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
I think it would be really good the game to defensively lock down really, really strong and just have a overall. That's why I thought 24-12 sort of like range. But I'm loving the confidence out of Anton, and it will need to the points differential sort of battle, as long as we're winning games, yes, this and that, but it will become a factor when we are hunting for that top 2 sort of range at the end of the season. So this is a great opportunity to do so if it is a New South Wales Cup Penrith Panthers side coming over.
It's a good attitude set for us too. It's I think when they came off the park in Cronulla, I was there that night in the corner. My son's first NRL game was pretty rad. He was on my shoulders going nuts for Dallin, putting the ball down in the first half and stuff. Had his eyes on the cheerleaders, which was kind of funny as well. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. What was cool about that was that it was ruthless. It wasn't just like we squeezed past the top 8 side. I think the Sharks are a better side than the Panthers this year, the way they've been playing. When you take the 5 best players out of the Panthers and the injuries that they've got as well, I just think if we're serious, we need to put some points on these guys because all the other good sides would do it. They would all put the foot on the throat and they'd cut them to ribbons. So I reckon this is a good test for us to see if we can do that. If the conditions are good, then I reckon it's a good chance for us.
Yep, I love it.
Yeah. Well said. Yeah, and I reckon it's obviously we want to with that 4 against, and it'd be nice to up that sort of get into that good position for that top 2. So it'll be a game where we could potentially see a lot of points, and then hopefully we do. I do hope we can put on a few points in this one, but. Thanks, Ash, and thanks to Anton for coming on. I really do appreciate you guys giving your time up to chat all things Warriors with me, and it's been good having you guys on, and looking forward to this back end of the season. It's going to be, as a Warriors fan, it's exciting times at the moment to be a fan of the club, and it's great having you guys on.
Awesome to be here, man. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you, Ballard. Thank you so much. And guys, jump onto Anton's Twitter page if you want to see some mad commentary. I've got a little burner Twitter account to chuck on and see what journalists are saying about the Warriors and that. And of course, I've got Anton in there, and I always check what he's got to say about the Warriors. I love it. So go check out this man, bro. He's a great follow.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah, all right, guys. Well, that wraps it up. So thanks to everyone in the chat for your comments and your interactions. It's always good to have you guys in here, and big up to everyone in the chat, and thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you like the live stream if you haven't done so already. Please hit that thumbs up button on the video, thumbs up on the live stream, share, subscribe, do all the following. Go and follow Ash on Ash Thomas on YouTube. Go and follow the boys at Waz Up. They're doing a great job, Levon and Ash, with their great content. So go and check them out, guys. It's they do brilliant stuff, and like I say, Warriors content, man. We all support each other in this Warriors community, so it's great to
agreed, bro.
Reach out and talk to all Warriors content creators out there, and chat about all things of the game. So thanks everyone for tuning in. Have a good rest of the night. Have a good rest of the evening. Enjoy Origin Wednesday night as well, and looking forward to Saturday up the Waz. Have a good one, everyone.
Up the Maroons, baby.
Up the Waz.
I don't know about that.